why does a $100,000 income no longer buy the American dream in most places? Or do you disagree with that premise? For reference, the median household income in the United States, according to the United States Census Bureau, most recent reading was $74,580. So I would absolutely buy that the American dream has gotten substantially more expensive over the last 5 years. But when people are asked, what do they say they need to be able to be pulling in terms of an income to achieve that American dream, Paul?
They're in between $100,000 a year to feel comfortable, and then 26% of people are saying that they need to be between $100,000 and $150,000, according to a 2023 CNBC Your Money survey done by SurveyMonkey. So more than half of the country feels that they need to be over $100K in order to properly meet that American dream.
Yeah, I think my answer would be, as with anything else, it obviously depends on where you live, and in the coastal areas of this country, from DC up through Portland, Maine, it's going to be higher than it would be in Indiana through Ohio, most certainly. But moreover, it's going to be heavily dependent as to, in my view, one major question: do I own a home with a mortgage that was written before 2023?
Right. Huge part of it.
Right, that's going to be a massive part of it, because we've talked about, with home prices up so much, combined with mortgage rates through the roof, buying a home today, the monthly payment on that, 40-50% more expensive for the same exact home that you could have bought in 2019. And so whether or not you have that locked in is going to be a massive driver, I would imagine, of whether or not you feel like the American dream is within reach, and vastly sway how much money you think you would need to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, particularly this comes off of a piece that we were talking about, Mike, off air. The St. Louis Fed did an analysis on real wage growth during 2022, and basically what they found is that the median worker experienced a 3% drop in their real wages from 21 to 22. What do I mean by that? Basically, the inflation that we saw didn't account for the wage gains that people should have had in order to keep pace with that inflation. And so that has people feeling that they need a higher median income to live comfortably, and it bears out in the survey data as well as just what we're seeing from a pricing perspective.
Yeah, this was really an important piece that the St. Louis Fed did, because we've talked about a number of different ways of measuring this, right? You can measure it with average income, you can measure it with average hourly earnings or aggregate payrolls, in terms of, are people's wages keeping pace with inflation over the last few years? Because when you ask people, the answer is no. When you look at aggregate data about wages, like how much total income is being earned in the United States, it is about 20+% higher than it was in 2019, just about where inflation is. This is more telling. Mm-hmm. This tells you beyond the average, the aggregate. This gives you a better sense. And again, to reiterate the part that you mentioned here, for 57% of workers, their inflation rate was above their nominal wage growth rate, meaning their wages did not keep pace with inflation. That's really all you need to know, and it is not the normal experience, right? According to this same study, the share of workers whose wages failed to keep up with inflation has been high for the last 25 years, but it's been less than half. 42 to 48% of workers over the last 25 years, their wages have not kept pace with inflation. Right now, we're experiencing 57% since 2022. The highest proportion of negative real wage earners only came as close to this period of time in 2008, when it was 54% of workers failed to keep their wages up with inflation. And then in 2011, again, crazy stuff going on with the repercussions of the Great Recession, people losing their homes, still not recovering their jobs, and starting to see inflation again. 56% failed to do so in 2011. Those are not the comparisons you want if you are trying to convince the Americans that the economy is good right now.
No.
Right? Like, yeah, I've got a job, but for nearly 2/3 of workers, that job is not buying me as much stuff as it did in 2019. That is a serious, serious problem if you are Well, if you're running for president. I mean, many other implications too, but it is a really serious prohibition for you convincing Americans that the economy is good if that's the answer you're staring at.